Hello, today is January 19th, 2022. I'm Derek Fildebrandt, publisher of the Western Standard, and you're watching The Pipeline. We've got a great show for you today. I'm joined, as usual, by co-host Dave Naylor, Western Standard News Editor. How are you, Dave?
I'm good, Derek.
But we're not as good as Corey Morgan, who is south side, sometimes really south, as far south as Mexico. Filling in for Corey Morgan today is Western Standard Calgary-based reporter Melanie Risdon. How you doing, Melanie?
Very good.
I always like episodes where you're here. Don't tell Corey.
Oh, no, thanks.
Corey's
so
kind of
nice.
annoying.
He doesn't even watch this show.
I smell better too.
You do. It's delightful. All right. Well, today we've got a great show. Truckers are fighting back against mandatory vaccines. Convoy moving from west-east from British Columbia, moving its way towards Ottawa. Of course, truckers, very dangerous for catching COVID when you're driving in a truck by yourself all day. Your soda could get COVID. So we're going to be talking about what they are doing. Ronald McDonald House in British Columbia has kicked out a family because they are unvaccinated. That story is getting all sorts of traction. Tons of our readers have been interested in that story. We're gonna dive into that. Alberta Minister of Justice Casey Madhu, the minister who is responsible for taking away the right of Albertans to fight speeding ticket, traffic violations, apparently has found an alternative way to appeal his traffic tickets. By just calling the chief of police. Huge controversy around that. Seems not much accountability has been done. All sorts of controversy around this. Although the answer seems pretty clear about what most people are saying needs to happen. We're going to talk about that. As well, what did I miss?
Agents.
Yes.
Undercover agents.
Yes.
Secret shoppers.
The Greenery, fantastic restaurant in Red Deer, Alberta, in big trouble for not abiding by, it's not a vaccine passport, it's a restrictions exemption program in place of a QR code. They accepted pictures of some cute little puppies, which is really bad. Really bad. They're in big trouble. Alberta Health Services has sent its secret police, or as the mainstream media would call them, mystery shoppers or secret shoppers. Secret shoppers.
Yes.
I remember, when I was like in high school, I worked at a grocery store. The boss would say, "Be careful, the mystery shopper would come, and they're going to rate your customer service and how well you can punch in the codes on grapefruit and things like that." I was always worried about them. I didn't think they were coming to check about if we're providing our papers, please. So that's what we've got. Before we get started, though, I want to thank all of our Western Standard members for your continued support. We have had a fantastic year here. We have grown so much. We have increased the size of our operations and our staff several 100% this year. It's been a fantastic year. We couldn't have done it without you. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, please go to westernstandardonline.com. and click on the membership page. Sign up. It's only $10 a month or $99 a year, and you can try it free for 15 days. If you don't like it, you don't have to pay for it. You can cancel it anytime before the 15 days. I think you're going to like it. You're supporting bailout-free, independent Western media, and we've got a great team here who are breaking great stories, producing some fearless opinion material. I think you're going to like it. Money well spent. Speaking of money well spent, today's show is sponsored by Algodex. Algodex is owned by Algonaut. This is great new technology just coming online now in the digital currency world. Algodex is a great way for you to use the digital currency Algorand in your day-to-day transactions. Can you imagine a world where we don't have to buy a cup of coffee using the federal dollar, that federal dollar that is now, what was the inflation rate that was announced today?
4.8%.
4.8%.
Too much.
Highest inflation rate since 1991. I was 4 years old. I was just a little guy. And I already knew it was bad to take a government to take things from people without their permission. That's what inflation does. Imagine a world where you can just opt out of using the federal dollar. And you don't even have to use the American federal dollar. You don't have to use the euro or the pound sterling. You can use real money, digital currencies that are not at the beck and call of governments and inflation. The Algodex is making digital currencies usable in a day-to-day basis. So let's get down to business. Truckers are fighting back. They've been targeted by the federal government because anyone who's crossing provincial boundaries can fall under federal control. And if the federal government has control over something, well, they are going to make you fall in line. Dave, tell us what's happening.
Oh, I'm not sure the truckers even know themselves. There's been flip-flops. First, the government says that they don't have to be vaccinated. Then 20 minutes later, they say, well, no, they do have to be vaccinated. So, I mean, the truckers, as you know, are key to the pipeline, the supply chain. They've got to bring their stuff across the border. So those supplies are now being delayed. They're expecting to lose hundreds of trucker jobs. So the truckers in BC have got it started. They're going to leave Vancouver, I believe, 23rd. Don't quote me on that.
23rd, I'm certain.
And they're going to go across Canada, and they're going to stop in all the cities like Calgary, picking up trucks along their way, and drive to Ottawa, and hopefully encircle Parliament Hill and just give their air horns one long big pull. Truckers in Manitoba yesterday protested. They drove down to the border there. They're having a hard time there. It's just not a good scene for truckers across the country. And they do such dangerous work, Derek. Driving, I guess the Coquihalla is now open, driving the Coquihalla in winter, driving Highway 3 during those winter storms when all the bridges were washed out. This is dangerous work. And to me, it just seems like the government's throwing them on the scrap heap.
Melanie, today, you're filling in for Corey. Melanie is normally strict news. We're going to cut Melanie a little slack today and unleash the real Melanie.
Tiny bit of
Small
slack.
amount.
She's not going to go full Corey.
I'm allowed.
But I always know we're always holding Mel back. I mean, our reporters are humans. They have opinions. Just generally, they're in the newsroom, and their reporting is supposed to be fair and neutral and balanced, as difficult as it can be sometimes. But you're filling in for Corey, so you got a little bit. Melanie, is there any idea? You actually spoke with one of the leaders of the convoy coming from BC. What did he have to say?
Actually, no, I didn't. I think that was
Reid.
it was Reid that spoke to him.
Okay.
But I will say, my thoughts on this, first of all, is I echo your sentiment. I mean, most of these drivers are in vehicles by themselves, first of all. But we have such a supply issue to begin with. I don't know where you get your groceries, but I know there's a lot of spots in our grocery stores that are sitting empty right now. So to do anything that's going to affect our supplies and getting food into grocery stores for people, I just don't think it's a wise choice. And it's not really all that logical to me.
I mean, vaccines, the evidence now that we've had them for long enough seems to indicate that they mitigate the severity of COVID. If you're less likely to be hospitalized, it's less likely to be severe. But it seems to make zero difference whatsoever for transmission at this level, at least with Delta and Omicron variants. It's utterly ineffective in dealing with that. So the excuse that you have to be vaccinated for transmission, well, that obviously has zero to do with it, because vaccination has nothing to do with transmission anymore. It's been decoupled, to use the language of public health officials. But it's also now, but we're dealing with people who, by the definition of their job, work alone. I mean, they might stop and pump up gas, and they would stop at a diner, except they're not allowed to go to diners if they're unvaccinated anyway. So maybe they go hop and walk through a drive-through. I don't think you bring a 18-wheeler through a drive-through McDonald's, but
you might scrape the side.
Not most of them, yeah.
Have we heard anything from the federal government about how they're justifying this, why they're saying it's necessary?
There doesn't seem to be anything from the federal government. It seems interesting to note, Derek, that while some places in Canada are ramping up the COVID vaccination restrictions, in the United Kingdom today, they declared the crisis basically over. Boris Johnson got
Party
up.
time, you might say.
Yeah, party time at number 10. Boris Johnson, the Prime Minister, got up and said, this is going to be the best winter ever.
Open for winter?
Yeah, open for winter. So Mel did the story. They're relaxing mandates. They're They don't have a mask. You don't have to wear the mask in school anymore. No more vaccine passports. So it's just interesting that some countries, Czech Republic, also did that today. So as Canada gets more restrictive, other countries are getting less restrictive.
I heard East Germany is opening up too.
Ooh, nice.
You're just 30 years behind on your geopolitics.
Yes, exactly.
Was it you who talked about East Germany a couple episodes ago?
No, couldn't.
I think it was you.
Was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I don't know. Maybe we're talking about giant butch women on steroids in the Olympics. I don't know.
I wasn't there.
No.
I think you've been chewing some of that stuff Corey's chewing on in the desert.
No, he's on peyote. That's what you do in the desert in the Southwest. All right. Well, fascinating story. We've got, as mentioned at the top, the Granary, a restaurant in Red Deer, in big trouble for not demanding the right papers, Dave.
Yeah, this is a strange story. I guess they had complaints. People went in and, we've got the Karens of the world that complain. They phone up AHS and they say, hey, they're just taking dog pictures instead of your vaccination papers or your QR code. If you show a picture of your cute little dog, they're letting you in. That's not right. I'm complaining. I'm telling. So AHS took that complaint and sent in their secret agents. They're undercover operators. Sure, they're highly trained.
I'd like to be an AHS James Bond. That's my dream job.
License to eat. So the agents go into the store, and I guess they observe this heinous practice being done, and that's it. AHS moves in the next day, shuts them down completely, says you're not allowed to use doggy pictures. So it's a good question, guys. Like, how many of these secret agents are out there? How are they trained? What are they getting paid?
Who's paying them?
How do you apply?
Melanie, why does the government hate puppies?
I think that is cruel and unusual. But I would say I've actually reached out to the ministry. I've reached out to AHS as well to see who are the secret shoppers, who are these agents that they're sending in, who's paying for them. Is this a contract secret shopper? Is this an AHS officer? Who's doing it? How many of them are there? How often are we deploying them?
Have we got any answers back on this?
Nothing.
Okay, well, we're gonna have to follow up tomorrow morning. If they haven't told us, well, we're gonna have to tell Albertans that they're not telling us. I think Albertans deserve the right to know how many of these plainclothes undercover AHS officials are roaming around trying to bust restaurants and other businesses for not complying with this madness.
Albertans, there's some Albertans that like to tattle, right? So when what was it, November 15th, you finally had to start showing your papers. Can you imagine the number of complaints that AHS has received that, this guy didn't do it? Or
they've got a whole department for the Western Standard alone.
Exactly. I mean, the number of agents they could, in theory, have if they told us.
Could be a lot.
I'd like to know.
But yeah, I think it's a legitimate question.
Let's swipe them.
I think it would be an interesting, and as a taxpayer, I would like to know what we're spending on secret shoppers.
Maybe this is we've increased the AHS budget by many billions of dollars during COVID, yet we still have effectively the same ICU capacity. I wonder where that money's going. I know. Let's make a point.
I think I may know salaries and the
bureaucracy
and the 1,900 senior vice presidents they have. I think some of that might be taking up some money.
Yeah. Well, Melanie, make a note. We're going to we're filing a freedom of information request to tag these buggers, find out how many there are and how much they're being paid. I'd like to know. I'm sure all of you would as well. Actually, this wasn't on the agenda, but this kind of fits in the Karen. Since we're talking about Karens ratting people out, poll out today shows that 1 in 4 Canadians, 1/4 Canada's population, wants to jail the unvaccinated at undisclosed camps in the East. Dave, I know this wasn't on the agenda here, but tell us a bit about the poll.
Well, luckily for you, Derek, I just published that story, so I know all about it. Bam. And it's actually more than a quarter. 27% of Canadians say the unvaccinated should be rounded up, thrown in jail for 5 days. 27%. That's quite staggering to me. And the numbers got higher. Should the should Canadians have or should the unvaccinated lose their right for driver's license renewals? Got higher than a quarter.
33%.
33%.
I don't believe in government licensing anyway.
Should the unvaccinated be denied hospital care? That also got a good chunk of support.
I
Didn't
think
it?
that was
We should
37%.
privatize it anyway.
Yeah. So yeah, if you weren't vaccinated, and I know you are because we've talked about it on the air before, but if you weren't, I could call up and the truck would roll up in front of your lovely house and away you go. 5 days in the Hooskow.
This is wild. I mean, a lot of the hyper like mandatory vax people, like Justin Trudeau says, these are racists, misogynists, extremists. One guy yesterday said I was a Nazi because I don't believe in mandatory vaccination. If they could just hear themselves, you don't believe that the government should be demanding your identity papers. That makes you a Nazi. Now, I think people throw around these terms
They don't understand.
way too, and both sides, I think, are guilty of throwing around these terms. But it is clear that one side is clearly the authoritarians here. Some on the side I fall on, I think, should be a little more careful with the facts. But I would, broadly agree with them, even if I don't agree with all the methodology and how they might go about expressing their displeasure sometimes. But I think there's pretty clear one side are the authoritarians here, Mel.
Yeah, I would say so too. And I've been speaking with lawyers, quite a few lawyers over the last few days, and I spoke with one that basically said it's surprising to him in the history of Canada to see that 27% of citizens would, he points out that, some people might look at it like it's 27%, but this is about jailing people for not injecting something into their body that they may or may not agree with. We're talking about jailing people in Canada, in our free country of Canada. So it's to him very shocking, and I think probably to many people very shocking to think that perhaps your next door neighbor, perhaps a friend of yours would be like, yes, you should be in jail if you choose not to be vaccinated.
Well, they want 10% of the country jailed. It's 10% not vaccinated.
I think
where are we going to put them?
Camps,
work camps.
undisclosed locations in the east.
5 days.
They're spending a lot of money on them.
I remember when the Western Standard broke the story, I think early last year, that the government was detaining people without warrants at the airport and not even telling their families where they were, taking them to undisclosed detention centers. Everybody, especially people who might not like the Western Standard, they're saying, you're making this up. This is clearly crazy. This is made up conspiracy theory crap. Until the federal government admitted it after we broke it, because we followed it. I mean, this stuff is a conspiracy theory Monday, and it's official government policy on Tuesday. Now, I don't think they're going to start just jailing people because there literally isn't enough prison room on the planet to fit 10% of the Canadian population in. So I don't think that'll happen. Although every time I don't think they're going to go somewhere.
But I mean,
they end up going there.
But what's the crime, though? I mean, that's sort of what I asked the lawyer too. What's the crime? What's there has to be a crime that's been committed, and I don't know that you can justify that.
Well, if Quebec goes forward with their mandatory vaccination program, which is a fine,
the tax,
the vax tax, they actually will be jailing people because this is how it works. You know what happens if you don't pay your taxes? You go to jail. You will go to jail. If you don't pay your taxes, feel free to try this at home, but I do not mistake this for legal or tax advice. Bad idea. But try this at home. Don't pay your taxes for 2021. We're coming up to tax time here. Don't pay your taxes. You know what's going to happen? The next thing that happens is the government's going to send you a notice, and then they'll probably send you another one, and then a really, really serious one that's very scary. And if you take it and you just tear up your paper, eventually a warrant will be issued for your arrest for tax evasion, and they will send police to your home. They'll take you to the station. And if you refuse to abide by bail conditions, you will be put in prison. That's what happens ultimately if you don't pay your taxes. Vax tax is a tax. If you refuse to pay the vax tax, you will go to jail. You will go to jail for being unvaccinated already in Canada. Now, it's not just sending soldiers with guns to round up 10% of the population. They're not talking about that yet. But if 10% if we had a vax tax across all of Canada and all of those people refuse to pay it, you would jail 10% of Canada.
Scary times.
Yeah.
You're speechless.
No, I'm thinking this is a great segue to our next sponsor, the Canadian Shooting Sports Association.
Oh, goodness.
Boy, am I glad I'm armed. Our show is also sponsored today by the Canadian Shooting Sports Association. The CSSA is a fantastic group standing on guard for your right to own, use, purchase firearms in Canada safely. They lobby the politicians to make sure they do their damnedest to make sure they can understand smart firearms policy in Canada. And when that doesn't work, they do great advocacy campaigns because, let's face it, a majority of the politicians in Canada have no idea what they're doing, or if they have any idea about firearms policy, it's normally pretty stupid ideas. So they run a lot of advocacy campaigns. This is a critical group to support if you own a firearm, if you want to own a firearm, or you just support the right of your neighbor to legally and safely own a firearm. I've mentioned before, I've been a member for a decade. I was visiting family back east this summer, and I saw a CSSA bumper sticker on my uncle's car. And so I go with these guys a long time. I'm not just saying that they're great because they're a sponsor, even though I am. I'm saying they're great because I've been a member personally for a decade. They're a great group doing great work. You should check them out. Google CSSA or Canadian Shooting Sports Association. Check them out. Become a member. They're doing fantastic work. They're supporting you. You should go out and support them too. All right. Ronald McDonald. Fun, goofy guy. I always liked Ronald McDonald. Actually, I didn't like Ronald McDonald as a kid. I was always I don't like clowns. I still don't like clowns, but
Grimace?
He doesn't really scare me anymore. But I remember once I was a little kid with my parents in a McDonald's, and there was a guy dressed. They used to actually have Ronald McDonald at McDonald's.
They did, I know.
Yeah, and all I remember is I was scared. I hid under the table, and I just remember his giant, goofy red shoes coming under the table ominously. So I actually have bad memories of Ronald McDonald.
It was kind of creepy.
Yeah, it was scary. I still remember it. So Ronald McDonald House in BC, they're a fantastic charity, doing great work for families in need here. But booting a child, was Melanie who wrote the story?
It was.
Okay, so we're gonna go to Melanie. Melanie, tell us about the story of the family being booted from Ronald McDonald House in BC.
Well, it was a family of four. Their 4-year-old son, Jack, was being treated at the BC Children's Hospital for leukemia. And he had been diagnosed in October. So the family moved in October, and they had been staying there. The father, Austin, had been commuting back and forth. He'd been commuting from Kelowna to finish some education that he was finishing up. He's a Red Seal electrician. Anyway, he joined his family in January and was going to be staying there permanently while Jack was being treated. And they were anticipating it was going to be until about June. But then Ronald McDonald House in that particular location, their board of directors decided to update their vaccine policy. And so anyone who comes into the home, stays in the home, guests, visitors, staff, all needed to be vaccinated, fully vaccinated. And if they were not, they had until the end of January to move out. So this family had sort of banked on the idea that they were going to be staying in this home. 2 very small children, so Jack and his smaller brother, 2-year-old brother. So very stressful for this family. What happened was the father confronted the administration at the house and, basically said, this is insane. This policy doesn't make sense. This is discriminatory. But Ronald McDonald House has not changed their position on their policy. And I mean, we're talking about a place where immunocompromised children are. So it's been a very polarizing topic because, of course, there are people who say, yes, of course, this makes sense. these children are immunocompromised. We need to make sure that we are creating a safe environment for them. But on the other side, we're just talking about how everyone can catch, carry, and spread COVID-19.
Yeah, the vaccine only deals with the severity if you get it. It has nothing to do with if you're going to get it or not.
With transmission, exactly. So this is sort of the argument that's being brought forward by this family, is that this mandate is really not an effective tool to protect immunocompromised children. And what it's doing is it's penalizing families, including this one. So the good news is they were placed at the Easter Seals house, which is just down the road from Ronald McDonald House. But it has created this storm of, again, polarized attention for this family. People praising them. In fact, there was a GoFundMe page started for this family early on, way before this. It was started by a friend of theirs to help them recoup some of the expenses of traveling back and forth. And, both of these parents are likely not going to be working for a chunk of time. So in the first couple of months of this GoFundMe page, it was, I think they had raised about $3,000. Well, once this story broke and went viral, support just started coming in for the family. So last time I checked, it was over $173,000 in support for this family. They were featured on Fox News. And I know that there are other, a podcaster and a radio host featured them in the US. So it's really spread. And in fact, there was even a news story of it out of the UK. So this story has kind of circled the world. It's been huge. And I think it's really, speaking with the family, I had an update with them yesterday. It's really exposed I think the humanity behind what these mandates are doing to some people and how it's negatively affecting people. And so.
Can I play Corey? Can I have an opinion on this one?
Yes.
You don't want to have at her.
All right. Look, this is basically a hospital we're talking about. This is a house filled with critically ill children, very young children. Jack is 4, other children. Why would you take any chance of perhaps exposing them to a virus that could kill them in their weakened immune system, which I'm sure a lot of these children have? So, I think Ronald McDonald Houses do great work. They do great work all over the country. Fabulous work here in Calgary that I've done stories on in the past. But surely you can't risk the health of everybody for the health of one. Mel is right. It is very, very polarizing. And I feel nothing but sympathy for this family. But you've got to realize there may be 10 other kids in there who.
But the vaccine has nothing to do with transmission anymore.
Well,
no, not since Delta and Omicron. It's been completely decoupled. Like the transmission rate between the vaccinated, the partially vaccinated, and the unvaccinated is equal.
But keep in mind, all the parents that are in this house too with their various kids, it's basically they just go from there to the hospital to there. Mm-hmm. So they're in, I won't call it a completely sterile environment, but they're in a hospital-like sterile environment.
Yeah, but there's no difference in transmission if they're vaccinated or not. It's
no, but if Uncle Joe comes in and he has it, then what? Why the risk? Why the risk when you're dealing with the potential?
If Uncle Joe is vaccinated, he is just as likely to be carrying COVID as Uncle Bob, who is unvaccinated at this point. Yeah. No, just Uncle Bob is more likely to be hospitalized by a vet. Like he's more likely to have a severe outcome, but that has nothing to do with anyone else's health there. What matters is, do they have COVID or not? Not are they vaccinated? Because there's just no statistical difference between them now on transmission.
Sure. Those statistics that you're talking about, I think are fairly recent. Probably less than a month that we started seeing that trend, the gap.
Well, really since Omicron.
Yeah.
Well, it actually started during Delta, but it was still decoupled a bit. It just closed.
Sure. But as a society, we have not made that step yet. Our medical health officials have not said, okay, everybody's carrying it now, we all might as well mix together, right?
No, but they've been wrong at every damn turn.
Sure, absolutely. I'm not arguing that. I'm just saying the Ronald McDonald people are playing the cards that they've been dealt with now, right? And the board made their decision when it was clear that, hey, if you were infected, you spread it, and the vaccine was supposed to keep you safe. We know that's not true now.
Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, they're just playing the hand they were dealt with, and it's just a very difficult situation when you've got young and potentially dying children involved.
And you're right. I think that's what's making it so polarizing, because again, the family sort of used that as their argument is, anyone could be bringing this into the house, not just us unvaccinated. So very polarizing. They have seen massive amounts of support, but I can imagine it would be very difficult, because not only are you being praised by one side, but they were so vilified from the other side of the coin, right? So I can understand the stress they've been involved in with all of this and with the spread of this going everywhere. But the good news is they are moving to a house where this is not a mandate, and they will be just as close to the hospital, and Jack will continue to have good care from the BC Children's.
Well, let's move on to something where everybody can agree the government is wrong. Alberta Minister of Justice and Solicitor General Casey Madhu, he got pulled over. Watch, you'll tell the story, but he's in hot water. He's in really hot water. Tell us
and
why.
It's got to be one of the dumbest political moves in recent Alberta history. He is basically Alberta's top lawman. So he's driving through an Edmonton playground zone. He's talking on the cell phone, which, hey, you're the top lawman. You might not want to do. So an eagle-eyed Edmonton Police Service officer pulls him over, gives him a ticket for $300 for distracted driving. So before the ink is even dried on the paper, he's calling this Edmonton police chief. But he didn't call about the ticket. No. The ticket didn't call about that. He wanted to make sure he wasn't being racially profiled, right? Because he's a Black Nigerian immigrant. We all know in the past, the police have pulled over a greater representation of African-American drivers. He wanted to know if that happened here.
I'm sure the chief would know if that was the reason.
Yeah, exactly.
The chief is the guy who would know the any racial motivations behind the police officer.
Yeah. So, I mean, even as shocking as the dumb thing that he did is Kenny's reaction to it. Kenny suspends him. Like, minutes after the CBC, and I'll give the CBC credit here, they broke the story. Minutes after they broke it, you had respected political scientists saying he's got to go, he's got to be fired. This is an egregious breach, and Kenny only suspended him, and they're going to call in an independent investigator. Well, Madhu has already said what happened. Chief McPhee has already said what happened. Why do they need an investigator?
Based on the facts that are already there, that's a fireable offense.
So people are saying, well, perhaps Kenny's just calling this in to give him some delaying tactics until after the Kenny AGM. But your history of Alberta political science. We also had an attorney general or justice minister at the time that was picked up for talking to prostitutes on the street. You remember that?
In the States, are you talking Don Scott?
No, it was Alberta.
Okay, well, Don Scott got busted for hookers when he was down in the States once.
Yeah, no.
But he's from Fort McMurray. Everybody thought that was normal.
Yeah, no, this was an actual attorney general. It might have been in the 80s. Anyway, I'm sure one of our viewers will remember it. But yeah, it's. I don't know what was going through his mind, and I don't think he knows.
This is crazy. I mean, the ticket. Not a good look, but I don't think that's a fireable offense. But he was very, very clearly using his influence to try and weasel out of a ticket. When I was in politics, I'd get pulled over. I never once asked for a favor, and I'd get ticket. I never even occurred to me to call like the Strathmore police chief. I didn't even think about doing that. It's such a stupid idea. And I'm kind of disappointed because I like Casey Madhu. I mean, I thought he was one of the brighter spots in a not very bright government. Like, there's not a lot of good bench strength. They're a disaster on a lot of fronts. And he's been amongst the better performers. And he's the only government MLA, UCP MLA in Edmonton, which guarantees you a cabinet spot, and he's fairly qualified, and he's a lawyer. So Kenny's in a tough spot here. He's also pretty much the only cabinet minister enthusiastically waving the flag for Jason Kenney's leadership.
They sent him up to Fort McMurray to fight Brian Jean.
Yeah, not terribly successfully.
No.
No, someone has to be Corey. Give it just give us your 2 cents.
Well, he said he paid the ticket.
Of course he paid the ticket. You know why he paid the ticket? Because you can't appeal it anymore.
That's right.
Because this is the same minister. Actually, so this is actually the part I want to get your 2 cents from. It was this minister for this government that took away the right of Albertans to appeal their traffic tickets without paying like $150 and a bunch of other stuff. If you're charged with murder, it doesn't cost $150 to get a day in court. But if you get a speeding ticket or talk on your cell phone in a playground zone or a school zone or whatever it is, it costs $150. So essentially, who's going to pay $150? Because $150 is like, that's the cost of a low-level ticket. No one's going to do it. So this is the minister who takes away your right to appeal a ticket. Well, it turns out there is a whole new appeal process. You just call the police chief. Melanie, I got nothing else to say. But I know you do.
Oh, well, I think, I think even just looking at it from the optics perspective, I mean, whether he's telling the truth, and he denies that he called to argue the ticket to get up.
But he clearly winked. He's he didn't say, please get rid of the ticket. He's like, I just want to make sure, there's
he was hoping after the phone call, the chief would phone down to the officer and say, "Look, just get rid of that."
Yeah.
That's what he was hoping.
We don't want any trouble over racial profiling.
And of course, he was smart enough not to come out and directly ask.
Yeah.
And the Edmonton Police Chief McPhee, says he never talked about it.
Like corruption is not normally explicit. Like Corey's in Mexico right now. Now I've never bribed a Mexican police officer, but I probably would if I got pulled over, because that's just the way it works. But in those kinds of arrangements, the cop doesn't say, if you give me 300 pesos, we can forget about this. It's a subtle ask. And so, I think, Casey Matthews not saying, hey, can you take care of this ticket for me? He's saying, hey, I'm concerned about racial profiling and people being stopped.
Right. And I get it.
Inappropriately.
I get it.
Wink, wink.
I think my point is that even if he's telling the truth, the optics, especially on the heels of coming forward and not allowing people to fight tickets, fines, whatever they get, it would be an embarrassment. Like I like you, it wouldn't even dawn on me to do that, because I wouldn't want something like that coming back on me and looking bad, even for optics. So even if he felt justified in, and really felt like he was being racially profiled, just the optics of it, I would never have. Well, if nothing else,
there should be a traffic court where he could have gone and fought it.
Exactly.
I think we can agree on that.
Instead of doing away with them.
I think Kenny made a big mistake by not firing immediately.
Yeah.
I think whoever he calls in, is there like a investigative company that investigates corruption or something like that? I mean, who's he going to call in? But when they do file their report, it's obviously going to demand that he should go. And then
because he didn't explicitly said, hey, chief, take care of this for me. It might say it was inappropriate, but it wasn't illegal. And that might give Kenny the wiggle room, because every time he's had ministerial resignations, he always drags his feet on this. Yeah. He dragged his feet on Tracy Allard after the Snowbird travel scandal to Hawaii and things like that. Dragged his feet on Tyler Shandro, who was clearly a cluster mutt when it came to his competency around managing COVID, managing the healthcare system. Not to mention just a total authoritarian who became a political liability for the government. He ended up being forced, kicking and screaming, to fire these guys when it was pretty clear to everybody else looking at this clearly that these ministers are going to go one way or another.
Is this the problem? He can't fire the minister because he would have to do a complete reshuffling of his cabinet, because only a lawyer can have that job.
Not legal. That's not technically true, but it is effectively true. It's become a constitutional convention that the top lawyer of the province should probably be a lawyer. I think the NDP, when they formed government, they had only 2 lawyers. One of them was Rachel Notley, that guaranteed Kathleen Ganley that job. and it meant that she could not lose it unless Rachel Notley took over as Attorney General. So it's not technically true, but it's effectively true.
Yeah. So I mean, he cannot appoint one of the other lawyers because they're all in sort of key portfolios and whatnot. And
He could move him around.
He could move him around.
But it requires a whole shuffling of the deck. One of the lawyers in the UCP caucus is Jason Steffen, an outspoken critic of Jason Kenney's leadership, lockdowns and mandatory vaccination. So I don't think he's going to be getting the job anytime soon.
No, but every day it's another outrage with the UCP. They just can't help themselves. They cannot help themselves. You're almost to the point now where you feel sorry for Jason Kenney.
It's, I'm not a big NASCAR fan, but when I watch for the crashes. Yeah. And this is great TV.
If you're a political fan in Alberta, you got your money's worth this year, haven't you?
I would say, yeah.
Yeah. Sports, politics as a spectator sport. All right, we're going to wrap it up there, but I want to, before we go, thank all of our Western Standard members for your continued support. You've just been incredible to us over the last year. You've allowed us to build out the Western Standard so much, to bring on new reporters, bring on great folks like, and actually somewhat properly pay our existing reporters. Bringing on guys like Nico. You can't see him, he's behind the screen, but great video production folks we've got here, membership services people who are taking care of many more issues than I like to think about. But to really expand what we're doing here, we're so grateful for all of your support. If you're not yet a member of the Western Standard, go to westernstandardonline.com. Try it free for 15 days. If you don't like it, you cancel it anytime before that. After that, it's only $99 a year or $10 a month. That's it. That's all.
Can we keep her?
You can't afford me.
I think they might even not let Corey over the border.
Oh, there you go.
I think he's requested that we open a Mexico bureau.
I heard that, yeah.
We do miss you, Corey.
Thank you very much, Dave, Melanie. Fun as always. And thank you all for joining us. God bless.